One of the great benefits of being a writer is every so often you get to do a group reading. And this is what this poem is kind of about. Behind the barn, the stage, lay in wait for the poets to come and read, one after another. A hot summer day with the smell of hay everywhere. And I arrived early, nervous, one of the few obscure poets scheduled to read with grace. And there she sat, straight back, golden tan body shining bare-chested in a lotus position, eyes closed and a smile on her face. Calm, beautiful, and those qualities radiated from her. My anxieties vanished. She opened her eyes and said, "Your muse should not be here for your reading." And she stood and strolled off. She was really there. I have witnesses. This is a poem about ice fishing on the dry fly. The trick is all in the cast. The flick of the wrist has to be just perfect if you go under the ice. Some of the kids today, though, take the easy way, cheating some call it, and just cut a huge hole in the ice and cast over it from about 200 feet away, which is more subtle than dynamite, sure, but leaves a lot to be desired, like an attachment to traditions and the dexterity needed to serve a dry fly beneath the ice sheets. Then you get the real hardcore, who fish the streams of the Gamburtzivs. Oh, let me interrupt myself. There's this continent, it's called Antarctica, and it's under like a mile or two of ice. And so we don't ever see the actual continent, but it has mountains and rivers and streams under there, buried under the ice. And I believe it's the largest mountain range in Antarctica are the Gamburtzivs. So, a little explanation. Who fish the streams of the Gamburtzivs, but that's not for me. And neither is a style where you cast a dry fly beneath the ice while wearing a wetsuit. What's the point? No, I prefer, and preach, I suppose, the old style, which Theodore Gordon himself praised as the coldest style of fly fishing, of waiting until the late winter when the water levels have fallen and there's a gap between water and ice, and sideways cast as deeply as you can into that grotto. It is not easy, and you never see the rise, but you feel the pull even though in the cold the fish get rather sluggish, but reel it in. Cook it over a fire on the shore. If close enough, but I know people who prefer fire on the ice. If thick enough, it will not burn through, and if it does, well, the steam is quite a show. The fish, I mean, is so tasty warm in the cold, but that's not what I came to talk about. I guess I came to talk about everything, the Gamburtzivs especially, and how someday we will all be able to fish under that ice. Going now to the border of France and Switzerland, I've written a couple of poems about the Higgs boson and the Large Hadron Collider, and they never seem to go out of style because so many years and they're still doing stuff. So this is called Multi-Layered Mona Lisa. In about 1 month, the Large Hadron Collider will go online, seeking Higgs boson and so much more, or less, depending on your perspective. And now we have no idea what will be discovered. Some say a black hole will consume Earth. Some liken it to the Tower of Babel, doomed to failure. But most of us know old frontiers will peel away, revealing new terra incognito. The mean mind with future events known knows what will happen. For now, Schrodinger's cat, all futures are likely have occurred, even a black hole. And then, well. And beneath the Mona Lisa, lay 3 other versions, none quite right, painted over, unseen layers hidden, discovered, and now some people who do this sort of thing have performed a psychological analysis of the Mona Lisa, her smile, her eyes, and determined certain things which are probably useless if they did not also analyze the emotions on the other layers and take into consideration the fact that the Mona Lisa is really Leonardo da Vinci. More layers like today when he lay down on the library lawn. The medicine plant woman puts her finger into his eye while someone else decried complexity, while she pulled an unwanted layer off from his eye. And you, patient as I drove in, half an hour late, picking up our son, and you were fine, and he was fine, and this is just one event, one layer in a life, adding on other layers. Which brings us back to David Hume in some philosophy class in college when my roommate and I talked about religion walking through a forested cemetery. And now he's living in the suburbs of turbulence, his orthodox life blown apart by who knows how many eruptions, separating the layers, covering so many wounds. So after so many years, he sought me out. And how did I become the stable one? How long will I follow this fault line? How many times around the tunnel, traveling close to the speed of light before I hit another particle and we see what comes next? And now we travel to the Northeast Kingdom. This is walking to Lucy's school. Fermenting strawberries from the Northeast Kingdom top off the compost bucket carried in the rain out to the garden, which pales in comparison with Sharon's garden. Anarchy of greens, flowers amongst vegetables, snap peas and pole beans and poppies, nasturtiums, strawberries, none in rows, rather by paths which somehow snake their way from kale to cucumber. Forgive the alliteration. Isn't vacation always like that, comparing gardens? That which is seen relaxed with what is seen stressed. And it took about half an hour to walk to Lucy's school. Another half hour back, finding the final stretch, having foot-deep ruts in the road, the school gone, and Lucy dead and buried in the village graveyard. At these rutted crossroads in the middle of the forest, we noticed a stone wall, a type usually made by communities, not individual farmers. Wide at the bottom, narrow at the top, sturdy, but with the appearance of instability, to confuse the cattle who steer away from such walls. None of the other lands had walls, weird for this part of the world. So, a century and a half ago, when 150 people lived here, with the now vanished school, a recently restored graveyard, the wall was an act of civic beautification, an attempt to say, here we are here, this is our village. And now cellar holes dot the half-hour walk, past fields filled with forest, back to Sharon's garden, the house Lucy spent her 47 years in, which survives only because people have repeated, decade after decade, we will be here. This is the earth which will nourish us and which has ended up nourishing future others. Relaxed, it is easy to see the continuum. Stressed and out of the continuum, it is a fairy tale, easily dismissed and not belonging in this great future. After dumping the compost bucket, I look around my garden and revisualize the real work, what is to be done. Then we go to Schenectady. I know, just what you wanted to hear. This was something I started doing as a stereotypical formulaic blues type song, and it changed. It's called The Stove Fan Master Our Voices. Hey diddle diddle, the guy played banjo. He picked a country blues song. Hey diddle diddle, the guy played banjo. He picked a country blues song. The kind with lots of repeating. This kind with lots of repeating. As I walked down that road, lonely, dusty, long, winding road, not a boulevard, never an avenue, perhaps a street, perhaps a lane, I sung what had been sung and I sang it again. The devil needs to show up at the crossroads. Yes, morning star, midnight at the crossroads. A deal is done before the dawn. A deal is done before the morning sun. Around the time I said I love you. About the time I said I love you. Oh, young Stevie Gillies done poor Susie wrong. I say Stevie Gillies done poor Susie wrong. He beat her, he left her for her best friend. He beat her, he left her for her best friend. Then he froze her on the back of a wagon. Yes, he froze her on the back of a wagon. Her ghost haunts a covered bridge still. Witnesses still see her haunting the covered bridge. Oh yes, Steve Gillies done poor Susie wrong. Oh yes, Steve Gillies done poor Susie wrong. And now he's still and dead beneath the ground. And now he's still and dead beneath the ground. Susie travels eternity in painful torment. Susie travels eternity in painful torment. And do you remember her best friend? Yes, I asked, do you remember her best friend? Oh, the moon will watch over you and me as we discover who hangs from that tree. Oh, the moon will watch over you and me as we discover who hangs from that tree. And hitting that spike just to see the sparks. I sing, hit that spike just to see those sparks. Doo-dah, doo-dah day. Oh yes, doo-dah, doo-dah day. We sat in the kitchen talking. We sat in the kitchen talking. The stove fan masked our voices. The stove fan masked our voices. You said you love me for what it's worth. You said you love me for what it's worth. And then we crooned the old ballad. Yes, we sang that old sad ballad. For some a song of victory, for some a blueprint of how Steve Gillies done poor Susie wrong. Remember how Steve Gillies did poor Susie wrong? We forgot our date at midnight. No crossroads rendezvous for us. Then we beat on pots and pans. Yes, we beat on pots and pans just to dance around ourselves. And we danced around ourselves. This one has a breadloaf connection. How cool is that? Last summer I had an adventure with my kids, which will come clear in the poem. And then the next afternoon, I was up at Breadloaf, someone talked, and then the real events of people gathering and talking happened. And the conversation, or part of the conversation, was about memoirs and memoir product, that sort of thing. This is called Mini Golf Memoir Product. The joke goes that my kids and I had just one day to visit all 8 mini golf courses near the tourist of the lake, and how my lengthy account of our grand adventures would be sold as memoir product. Later is a huge budget movie, an adventure film where we have to find the right course against armed adversaries, or an existential miniseries. An hour a week on each hole, told over 8 seasons. But I am more intrigued by the people who do not see that as a joke, rather as an opportunity to make a hole-in-one fortune, meandering through their lives, seeking opportunity without actually making them. Much like that beautiful woman sitting over there, alone in deep thought, wonderful gray-speckled long brown hair, who nobody thinks is funny and who nobody would actually approach. Yet volumes are written about the specific ways to dream of her, and even why she is not a proper dream. This is called Back. I remove the tarp from my tent. A breeze comes across the lake where I have spent the last 3 nights. A natural farewell wave, perhaps. I scoot the daddy longlegs, my roommate these past days, out of my tent. He scurries on into his own life as I scurry on back to mine. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the New England Review for doing this. And please welcome Julia Shipley.